Just as a reminder, you can visit us at thepandapod.com. That's thepandapod.com to grab our RSS feed, listen directly, and share PandaPod with your family and friends. You can also reach us directly via email through podcast at thepandapod.com. Thanks for listening.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Panda Pod. I am Jeff and I'm joined with Wiggy.
Hey, everybody.
And Jacob.
Hey.
And our special guest today, our friend Pete, the Blue Collar Spiritualist. Pete, how you doing, bud?
What's going on?
Not a whole lot. This is our super special Halloween episode. And Pete is a medium and a shaman and has been in this world for a pretty long time. And so we're going to hear some stories from him today. Pete, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little about yourself?
I'm a medium, and I also do shamanic work, like you said. I kind of had experiences as a kid, and I kind of blocked those experiences because I was terrified of them. And then in my 20s, my grandmother died, and she started coming to me in spirit. And through her experiences, she kind of helped open me up and back into those sensitivities and awarenesses. And, you know, I kind of had an up and down spiritual journey that ranges from moments of bliss and moments of schizophrenia. But, you know, I've been doing it for almost 20 years now, and I kind of have a whole range of experiences. I don't know what you want me to touch in on first.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about your mediumship?
Okay. Well, to start, I guess when I was a kid, I remember going to this girl's house when I was about like 14 and seeing like a young boy standing in the corner of the room. And I'll never forget how he looked because he had like these like almost like these translucent eyes. And I remember being in a room and there's a couple people, like my friends were there. We were hanging out at this girl's house and nobody else saw him. And it absolutely freaked the shit out of me. And I thought, I remember saying out loud, like, please don't ever come to me again. Like, I'll have a heart attack if I see that again. So it kind of like, that kind of blocked it for me, you know? And then I actually went to see a medium at a friend's house, a random thing. My friend hosted a medium for the night at her house. She hosted a mediumship night at her house with this lady. And as soon as I walked in the room with the lady, she said, "Is your name Pete?" And I said, "Yeah," which freaked me out in the first place because I was like, how does she know my name, you know, like, and she's like, your grandma's been with me for about a month. She's been hanging around my house. She said that I need to talk to you. And as soon as she said that, I sat down and I could feel, it was the first time I like reopened up and I could feel like my grandma literally standing next to me. Like she was in the physical realm, you know, like it was so like obvious that she was standing next to me.
Wow.
And I actually became close friends with this lady, and she wound up kind of teaching me, you know, practical ways to strengthen my connection and build my connection to the spiritual realm. And I got so obsessed with it because I was just like, I was at a point in my life where I was kind of lost and I didn't really know what to do with my life. And it almost was like a high, you know, it was like, it got you in such this space that was like such an elevated way of being that I just wanted to feel that way all the time. So I just practiced all the time, and through practice, you know, I kind of just honed my gift. And then I got connected to spiritualism, which is like a religion. I don't know if you guys are aware of like spiritualism with the Fox sisters, because there's kind of a lot of shady stuff connected to them, because there was a lot of people who were like hoaxes in the early 1900s and stuff like that. But spiritualism was kind of a religion based off of like mediumship. And it was kind of like an open thing, like anybody could go to the services. You don't have to like, do a communion and all that stuff. But it was a place where I could practice mediumship basically in front of people and do like public demonstrations. And just through that church, I kind of met a lot of mentors, got connected to a lot of teachers, and just kind of worked on my abilities.
Interesting. Where was, like, what area of the country was this? I've never heard of this church.
Spiritualism was formed in upstate New York by the Fox sisters. So the Fox sisters were these two girls who were living in this house, and they started hearing like knocks, and over time they gradually became connected to this spirit. It wound up being a man who was buried like on the grounds of their home, and they like learned how to communicate with him. And through there they kind of expanded, and there's this place called Lilydale, which is in like Rochester, New York. There's a great documentary. It's called Nobody Dies in Lilydale, and it's like a town that is dedicated to like spiritualism. There's like all these different houses, and in each house there's like medium or a healer, and they have like a church on the grounds. And from there they kind of spread across the country. If you Google like national spiritualist churches, there's one probably in every state.
Right.
But mine was on Long Island where I lived. It's crazy. As rare as it kind of was, there was 2 spiritualist churches within like 20 miles of my house.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, you are located in New York, correct? Were you at this time?
Yeah, I'm in Long Island. I'm in New York.
Okay.
But I've been to Lilydale as well, because a lot of times they hold like a mentor of mine is kind of like the vice president of like the national organization. So like I used to go with him because they would have like these conventions where all these mediums from around the world and country would come to like these centers and host like workshops and kind of just like connect to like-minded people, So I traveled there a couple times.
I did as you suggested, and I just kind of looked up the spiritualist churches, and I see that there's an organization. It's called the Natural Spiritualist Association of Churches, or the NSAC.
Yes.
Yeah, and there is one in about 20 states. Currently have churches. There's a fair amount in the Midwest, and the Northeast. And then some way west, like Arizona and California. It's interesting for sure.
When you're like channeling these spirits, like when you're working with past spirits, what does that feel like to you? What's the sensation like?
I mean, to be honest, now it's kind of balanced out. It used to be like such a raise in vibration that you would feel such a shift, But I think from just working more and more, you kind of clear yourself. Like I think for me, like right now, I could feel spirit with me right now. The first thing that happens is I get like an itch on my nose, and then I just start seeing spirits. My thing is like there's a lot of misconceptions about connecting to spirit, which is that like, oh, it's a gift, I'm special, blah blah blah, but it's all bullshit. Anybody can do it. I think everybody's doing it. They just don't know they're doing it. And I think the more you practice, you understand like the concepts and how it works. But I think everybody's doing it. Really, to my understanding, it's really just your imagination. It's like using your imagination with intention, basically.
And you also teach this, right?
Yeah, I teach it, all over Long Island. I host classes, and I teach about, every 2 weeks I teach somewhere, like basics of mediumship. There's different levels. I've kind of experienced the whole spectrum just because I was blessed with having great teachers and stuff like that. But I teach like basic mediumship. I do like more advanced stuff. I'm actually working on doing trance mediumship, which is like kind of more fully surrendering and allowing spirit into your body, um, which comes along with like physical mediumship, which is, instead of like mental mediumship, is just you receiving information like mentally, where physical mediumship is like experiencing physical phenomena while you connect. So I used to sit for physical mediumship for like 5 years with the mentor I'm speaking of, and he would transfigure, so you would see like the spirit's face on his face.
Oh.
And yeah, and there's other abilities, like I worked with this guy in England who you would get ports, you would get things flying around the room, and I feel like naturally in the beginning I was a skeptic always, but then like when you see the thing happen and you can't explain it, it's like, okay, then there's something here,
Right. And this might be a good time to like think about like what do you say to people who are skeptics besides just like I've experienced this, right? Because like we've done an episode in the past on tarot readings and other forms of divination, and usually I'll give some kind of disclaimer like, even if the person listening doesn't believe this, it's totally true that like our subconscious picks up so much more than our conscious mind does, right? And in my mind, like tarot and divination, those are at the very minimum a pathway from your conscious mind to your subconscious mind, right? And so I feel like that's an explanation that even a skeptical person can buy. I'm curious to hear what is your skeptical, like what's your explanation for skeptics of this ability?
Well, to be honest, it's like I don't really attract skeptics anymore. Like I don't really, and I think that has to do, like, if you look at from it like physics, like law of attraction, natural law. It's like if you believe something, you're gonna attract that experience. So I don't think there's ever gonna be anything I could say that will change somebody's mind who doesn't want to believe. Like I remember I had a friend. He was like he was actually like a doctor, and he was like valedictorian, like super science logic guy. And I gave a reading to him. This is what convinced me. I gave a reading to him, and I felt like I had his grandfather, and I saw his grandfather fall on a boat and break his hip fishing. And he's like, his response to that was, everybody's grandfather goes fishing. Like, that doesn't mean it's my grandfather. Yeah, my grandfather broke his hip on a boat, but that could be anybody's like, you could have said that about anybody. And I was just like, I'm never going to convince him. So, like, I stopped trying to please skeptics. Like, if it's not for you, it's not for you, It's like,
Sure.
I think, like, if you're hurting inside, regardless of what I'm saying, I think, like, if somebody lost a child and they come to me and I give them evidence somehow that there's an existence of them after life, I mean, that's all I want. I don't really care what skeptics think anymore, to be honest. I just,
Right. Makes sense.
it's like, like, I just don't think there's the ability to convince somebody. It's like you have to decide you know, and maybe that's the truth of everything. Maybe that's why we believe what we believe, because of experiences we had, you know. And even if it is like the subconscious, you know, it ties into the whole like super consciousness idea of like, if we're all one and there's an aspect of us that's like connected to everything, then in a way we know everything if we tap into the right source.
Right.
You know?
And I like your approach of handling skeptics, of just saying, you know, well, they don't you know, if it doesn't matter to you what they believe one way or the other, right? So that's
Yeah.
that's a nice way to look at it for sure.
Well, it's funny because it's like, I feel like during my mediumship journey, like as you grow, you kind of go over different obstacles with things. So it's like you face people who are skeptics because you're doubting yourself. But like I don't really doubt myself anymore. Like I know when I'm connected. Like even if I'm reading somebody and it doesn't resonate for them, I don't really care, to be honest, cuz I know when I have a connection now, and it's not, I don't doubt it in my mind at all. You know, and then like I feel like that's reflected in my reality, where I don't really attract the experience where somebody's like, "Oh, you're fake," or "You're a fraud," or whatever. It's like
Sure.
I don't really care.
Yeah, that's
You know?
typically the sign of somebody who's a veteran at their craft, right? Like you don't really care. Um, you know what your experience is, and you know whether or not they believe you or not doesn't take away from your own self assurance. You know, like
Yeah,
your
and
own
I'm not.
confidence and your experience.
Yeah, and I'm not so attached to outcome. You know, like I feel like I used to want to have the session where somebody's like, "Oh my God, that's my son or my daughter, whatever," and they have this like healing and this release. Now it's just like, it is what it is. Like this is what I feel like. Spirit gives you what you're supposed to get. You know, so it's, if it doesn't measure up, to me, it's really something that's reflecting within you. Like you're not ready to hear it, or you're not ready to move forward. You know, there's a lot of people who are suffering who tend to attach to their suffering or identify with their suffering. So it's like you can't heal everybody. You know, they have to. I don't really think you heal anybody. I think like you hold the space for them and you allow them to have the experience. You know, like it's
Yeah, that's not much difference from you know how a therapist would think about it, right? Like you're just trying
yeah.
to help, but they've got to do the work, right? It's not necessarily a snap your fingers done kind of thing, right? Like you're just part of a journey.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too. Is like a lot of people who are getting into spirituality. I was just talking about this with somebody else. Is that like they typically people get into like manifestation first, but it's like the real thing with spirituality, I think, is just like healing your trauma and like deprogramming yourself of your beliefs. And that's not saying spirituality's got the right beliefs, but it's kind of, I think you should deprogram your beliefs to like have an open, honest awareness of what you really feel without
Yeah,
being
yeah.
like manipulated, you know?
And you know, seeing and experiencing is believing, you know, and in your case, you know, beyond just the mediumship stuff, I mean, you have like some legit like paranormal supernatural encounters that you've had in your life, right? Like, I mean, you've like, viscerally experienced some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot. There was like a 2 year, well, if I get into the shamanism stuff, there was a like 2 year experience period where I think it was like an initiation process where they were like testing me, you
Well, why don't you
know?
tell us about that? Tell us a little more about your shamanism and what you went through.
So I guess I'll start off with through like the church and like various like coincidental meetings that I during my spiritual path or whatever you want to call it. I met somebody who was a shaman, and you know, when I was first starting off, I was like, I want to learn everything. I want to understand everything. I want to look into every religion, you know, everything. So I met this shaman, and she offered to kind of give me a session and open me up to shamanism. So the first time I go to her house, I'll never forget, I pulled up to her house, and it almost felt like there was like this um, barrier around her whole property, and it felt like kind of just like almost like a Twilight Zone episode. Like as soon as I stepped on her property, it felt like just weird there, and I felt super anxious. And I'm not really an anxious person, and I was like, what the hell is this about? So I go to sit with her to have a session with her in her office, and I'm super anxious the whole time. And she tells me she's going to teach me how to shamanic journey. Basically, shamanic journeying is using a drum or a rattle. Any repetitive sound puts your brain into what's called theta state, which is like an altered state, which is similar to like meditation, and it helps you kind of relax. You know, you could have various experiences from just being relaxed to being aware of energy to you know, a psychedelic experience, I guess. So anyway, she sits me down and she says, we're going to work in the spirit realm. I'm going to drum and we'll talk about what you experience. I'm going to hold the space for you. I said, all right. So I close my eyes. She starts drumming, and all I see is this like this like Nosferatu like being.
Whoa.
If you're not familiar with Nosferatu, he's like the old vampire with like the bald head and like the long fingernails. Really scary looking dude.
Yeah, sometimes I
And
look like that on weekends.
yeah. And he was really creepy, and he took over like my whole mind's eye, or pretty much my whole experience. And we come back, she brings me back, and she's like, did you notice anything? And I was just like, yeah, there was this like really creepy dude, like covering my thoughts. Like I couldn't see anything else but him. And she's like, you have a spiritual attachment. And I was like, what's that? And basically she said that when you're raising your vibration through doing spiritual work, there's different beings and you know, spirits who are stuck here, and they view you as the light. So they come to you and they latch on because they mistake you for the light. I said, all right. I'm like, am I gonna be okay? Like, what the you know, what the hell? And she's like, no, I'll take care of it. I'll help you through the process, and then I'll teach you how to deal with this stuff. Because she said, well, basically she said that my purpose is to deal with like spirits who can't cross over, attachments, and all this stuff. And I was like, all right. So she's like, I'm going to do another journey with my guide, and she'll take care of everything. So I'm sitting there. She starts rattling. I start getting super anxious, almost like, you know, spacey anxious. And then like all of a sudden I just start feeling like this thing is being ripped out of my body. Like physically it feels like there's another human inside of me and something's ripping it out. And it goes on for like 15 minutes. She's like rattling and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden it's gone. And I feel so much better. I feel so different. Like I feel so much more clear. And I'm like, holy shit. Like part of me is like, did I just lose my mind? Like what the hell was that? And basically she kind of taught me how to deal with attachments, and there's different levels of things and intensities, I guess you could say. and she just kind of talked me through it. And then I would start having clients where I would feel I have this like pressure on my face when somebody has an attachment, and I feel the attachment, and then I help the person get rid of it. And but like they put me kind of through this whole initiation process where I probably dealt with like 1,000 on myself first before I had the
Oh
first
wow! So
client.
like you
Wow.
just had like a wave of like spirits that you had to pass through before you could get to the other side, that kind of thing.
Well, like, I mean, in all fairness, when I was first kind of waking up and having experiences, like, I didn't know what I was doing. So I wasn't protecting myself the right way. I wasn't having the right hygiene in terms of energy. I wasn't asking for the right support, So I think I was open, and I was overly open, and I was overly empathic. So I would just like kind of attract these experiences. I also think it was like a lesson, like as hard as it was, I would go, like, I would feel really weird, and like out of nowhere, I would just feel off. And then I would get the pressure that something's hanging on with me. And then I would do the journey that she taught me and work with my guides, and they would remove it. And I think part of the work is as you remove these spirits, I think it actually works on you as well. Like it clears some aspect of you or some trauma that you're holding on to. Does that
Okay,
make
so
sense?
would you say that all like the spirits that you cleared as part of this process, like they were essentially hanging out with you for your whole life before up until that point?
I think there was some, but I think some would come to me. What would happen is start as soon as you start opening up to that ability, it's like then somehow they know, like
Right.
like they know when I'm coming for somebody too. Like for example, last Saturday, I this past Saturday, a lady called me for a house clearing. She has 2 kids. Her kids were seeing these spirits. They were bothering them. They were like waking them up. The one son was scared to like go in his room, right? So she called me probably Tuesday, right? And I do my daily work. I don't do anything crazy. I'll do like a meditation. I pray and stuff like that. So I'm sitting in meditation for like Thursday, Friday, and I see this guy in my meditation. Like I could feel him like watching me, right? And
Okay.
he looks exactly like if a squid or like an octopus was a man. Like what's that movie? Pirates of the
Cthulhu.
Caribbean?
Oh yeah, Davy Jones.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that type of being, right? So I'm
Okay.
like, what is this? Like, why is this guy keep showing himself to me, right? So I go to do the house clearing on Saturday, and I'm doing the work that I do, and I'm drumming, and I see the same guy. And then Spirit tells me that's the spirit that's messing with this house to clear him, right? So then just to verify, after I come out, like I work with the homeowners or the property owners, so like I'm telling them what I'm sensing and what I'm feeling in their house. So I do the journey to clear him, and I start talking about him and describing him, and the son tells me that's exactly what he saw in his room.
Wow.
So
Wild.
they know, somehow they know that I'm coming, whether it's because I had a conversation with her and he was listening to the conversation, but they were aware that I was coming to do the work.
Right. And honestly, that kind of leads me back to my skeptic's explanation. Um, and to be clear, I would say that I'm less and less of a skeptic as time goes on. But I mean, if you think about how much the subconscious can take in, right? You
Yeah.
having a phone conversation with this person would give you those types of clues, right? I mean, that's like your conscious mind is not picking up on it, and maybe what the problem that they're having that you're helping them clear, I mean, like that manifests to both you and the little boy as this picture, this particular picture, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's possible. Yeah, because well, that's the thing. It's all energy. So if you look at it like our vision, right? Like how much do we actually see that's there?
Right.
Like we see the smallest spectrum compared to like what's observable. So I'm
Exactly.
sure there's things that it's like I always say like people associate like you go into a haunted house and you get the chills. People automatically associate that with something evil or bad. But the truth is, what I think it is your nervous system is aware of the energy. We associate it with bad because of culture and programming.
Right.
It's like the same thing as like a bad smell or like gasoline, like these strong smells is because like we're programmed through our DNA and genes to like be aware of like the smell of death or like any rotted, it's like programmed in us. So who's to say there's not things that are programmed that maybe we don't know the reason for, but there's like an awareness somewhere.
Right. Right.
Something I've been thinking about lately is this idea that everything that we experience in life is just kind of this graphical overlay on top of like something else that's like bigger, that's happening.
Yeah.
And I think that spirituality or religion or, meditation, whatever it is that you're into, I think all of those are also just different ways of interacting with that kind of like base layer of reality in the background that we're all trying to figure out. So like I think that as far as like the skepticism thing goes, or really any of it, like whether it's your subconscious or whatever, the point is this is all interacting with something, whether that be your own subconscious, or the weird code in the background of the world that we're all living in, whatever it is. All of this is a way just of interacting with that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I listened to some podcast about DMT and it made me think kind of a different way of thinking. Like everybody, in terms of aliens, everybody's thinking aliens are like in space, or I'm just using the word aliens, but we could say
Sure.
other beings or higher evolved beings. It's like if you look at us, right? Say we're within, I don't know, 300 years of like not needing a physical body, so like how big is the window of aliens out there that have the technology to travel through time or travel through time and space and still be physical beings, right? Because once we transcend the physical, like we don't need our bodies. So like what, I was thinking like maybe like we'll get small, maybe we'll be like more like finite, like work with like the building blocks of nature, like get on a deeper level, like a nano level, like maybe things will actually get smaller. And maybe
That's
like
interesting.
it made me think of like the quote, or I don't know if it's in the Bible, but it's like behind every blade of grass there's an angel.
Right.
So like maybe like if you think of being more highly evolved, you think of like service to others. Like what would like culture that's more evolved than us be like, to the 100th degree? Like wouldn't they just be pure service, or like, you know, maybe they make up our reality? Like maybe they're all around us in our brain chemistry. I don't know. I know this is a trippy thought,
Oh.
but
No, it's great. I think you're onto
Yeah.
something. I mean, I think certainly, and maybe that even refines my disclaimer even further. Like, it's clearly true that reality is what you perceive it. Like, no two people are seeing exactly the same thing. So, that's obviously true to anybody who is listening to this, right? So that's a starting point for anybody skeptical.
There was since we're on this topic, there was a shaman, that I don't know if it was last year, maybe 2 years ago. There's this Indian shaman who, um, he had traveled to this special place up in, I think it's the Himalayas. There's like a special temple there, and when you go there and they perform a ceremony and they do some meditation, and through that meditation the idea is that everybody that's done it has connected to an ethereal being, um, where it's mostly feelings. It's not words, there's not like sound, it's like light and a feeling. um and and I feel like you guys were saying, it's all kind of connected in some ways, right? Like even if you went to go think about, like Jeff said, like maybe like computer program in the background or whatever, like deja vu's, or you see something that isn't quite what you're expecting, and those can just be some other form of information that our brains can't fully process. And I think it's really interesting the different ways that people come in contact with things that, uh, I mean, you could call them beings or spirits or whatever you want to call them, but that there is something that else that's there.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different ways to connect to those things, right? Like you found your way, like you mentioned before, like people who, meditate, right? Like through meditation, there's lots of different feelings and things that kind of fly by you when you're in a flow state and things like that. And it's just super interesting to me. But I wanted to bring up that one point where they do go to a temple and they meditate and they go through a ritual, and it's just like this feeling of warmth, but also of like overwhelming intelligence, right? But that's the same thing that people say when they're on like ayahuasca, right? Like when people talk about being on ayahuasca, that's what they talk about, like this connection to the world and all these things. And I think it's so cool how all those things are connected.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I went through like a whole belief of like that. I think like even aliens, or like if people are having these experiences, I think my belief or my experience is that it's another form of you. Like I think we um we're on all dimensions, and I think like it's almost like you're expressing your human dimension right now, but I think there's higher aspects of us, and that's our connections to these other realms. Is it's like another form of us, but that's just my belief through experiences I've had.
It's really interesting because we had another guest on not that long ago where we kind of talked about like imagine if you were playing a video game with yourself, right?
Yeah,
And that and that barrier gets kind of lost sometimes, right? So you just kind of you pierce that that barrier veil, right?
yeah,
I like that idea a lot.
yeah. Well, like you want to me, like I think my goal has always been to like almost be like the observer of Pete's experience and not be so attached to anything and just allow the authentic version of who I am play out without judgment, you know?
That's
And I mean, it's
amazing.
not. I mean, it's hard to do. I'm not saying, you get wrapped up in everyday life, and
Sure.
everybody has their issues and stuff like that, and we're all working through things. But the more I just like observe and just be who I'm supposed to be, the more everything flows to me. You know, when
Yeah.
I'm not judging myself, you know, it's it's been a while though. Like I've been trying to do this for a long time.
Sure.
So.
You said earlier that you were feeling connected to spirit. Is that something you're still feeling now?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, they tell me stuff all the time. I just don't always listen,
Right. They telling you anything?
Yeah, I feel, um, this is gonna be hard to do because we're just doing audio. Um, but I feel a gentleman in spirit. He feels like I would say he looks like he's in his 40s. Um, I would say, brown hair. Sort of like spiky, but kind of like disheveled a little bit. I also see like a strong jawline and a beard. I would say he looks like he's like 6'1". Good looking gentleman. He looks like he's kind of like a little rugged, outdoorsy, I feel um, like I almost get like a hunting vibe from him, or that look.
Wild. Up until outdoorsy and hunting, I felt like you were describing me.
uh
Do you
it's a
sense
vibe.
any kind of like flannel, like wearing flannel?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. I feel like when I'm with him, I feel like some sort of he pulls me to his heart physically. Like I feel his heart. So I don't know if he had some sort of physical issue with his heart. Um, I get like a T name connected to him. It might not be his name. It might be somebody like a connector name. Um, he feels more like in relationship. He feels like a friend.
What's really interesting is the entire time that we've been talking, right? I've been thinking about my own experiences with what I thought was a spirit at one point, and I still do. When I was a child, and I was at my house, I woke up in the middle of the night because I thought I heard something. I mean, I was probably around 6, 7 years old, something like that. And I got out of bed and I walked around at my house, and like I went to go and I looked downstairs, and when I turned around in my kitchen because I was just going to go back to bed, I turned around in my kitchen and I saw this like big lumberjack looking dude.
That's
Just
interesting.
kind of standing there staring at me. Um, but he didn't do anything. He didn't say anything, and like I kind of looked away because I was scared.
Yeah.
And then when I looked back again, he was gone. Um, but it was yeah, like that's just what that reminded me of. Like you're
I
just
mean,
kind of saying what
if
he looked like, and that's what he looked like. So
yeah, it feels. I mean, you're saying it obviously, but it does feel connected to you as I hear your voice. It feels more connected to you, like I'm more pulled to you. Um,
I don't
like
know
right,
anybody like that. That's just what I saw when I was a kid. Like I
yeah, no,
don't
I mean,
actually know anybody.
see, like the other misconception too is like people always think it's gonna, like spirit's gonna come through and it's gonna be like who you want, and it's exact like, oh, my brother died, that's who's supposed to come through. Sometimes it's just random, or like kind of, there's other purposes it serves.
Or
Like
just
I don't
completely
really.
disconnected.
Yeah. What happened?
Or just completely disconnected.
Usually it's some significance though. Like, I don't know. It feels like they like want me to share like how to connect with you guys. I don't know. That's what I
Okay. Well, let's hear it.
Are you guys open to that?
No, I
Sure,
am.
yeah.
Okay, so this is obviously the quick version, you know. But basically anybody could do this, like even the people listening to this, right? So if I tell you to see an apple in your head, can you see an apple in your head?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that's clairvoyance. That's the ability to see spirit. So when you connect to spirit, that's how you see them. All right. Most people think it has to be this like grand experience. That's real mental mediumship, is seeing it inside your head. If I tell you to feel a wet sponge, can you feel a wet sponge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's feeling. So basically, even if you're sitting there and you have your hand on your knee right now, um, if you think about it, it's not your hand really feeling your knee, it's your whole nervous system. And you could feel it kind of from your hand travel up your arm to your brain. So it's like if spirit wants you to feel something, all they do is tap into your nervous system and give you the sensation. And they use the same pathway as when I ask you to feel a sponge. If I ask you to hear an ambulance siren, um, can you hear an ambulance siren in your head?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so that's clairaudience. Those are the three basics. They're the easiest to explain. So all we do is those are the pathways that they communicate. Now, the spiritual realm isn't above or below us. It's all around us. It's another layer of this reality. So basically what I tell people to do is, you start at your toes and just kind of feel your whole body, like feel the boundary of your body and just kind of do a light scan over your whole body. Take a couple breaths, right? So now what I do is I say, you have the awareness of your body. Now what I want you to do is, if you're in a room, push your energy all the way to the ceiling. And when you do that, you should feel like a shift. A lot of your energy will move up, and you might feel a little spacey. You might feel a lot in your mind. You might feel a little weird, but it's just to teach you the awareness of energy shifting around you. So then you breathe into that. Now bring your energy to your floor and feel the difference between the ceiling and the floor. It should feel a little more solid, a little more grounded. You might feel a little more present, a little more physical. Take a couple breaths at that. And then if I ask you to feel out the right side of your body, feel the difference between the ceiling and the floor. Obviously, I'm trying to fit this all in, but you could take more time at each space. Then feel out the left side of your body, and then just feel all the difference from up, down, left, right, right? So now, when we want to connect to spirit, the trick is they have to know that you want to connect. And the way you tell them that you want to connect is you expand in all directions. So you take a breath, you could breathe into your heart. I always start in the heart. That's our spirit, that's spark. And you expand your energy and awareness to fill the room. Try to expand as big as you can. And what that does is it's like turning on a light switch for the spiritual realm. And then all you do is you set the intention, you send the thought from your heart through your body out the top of your head, and just send the thought or intention for spirit to step in with you. And when you do that, you typically get like some sort of sign or feeling or sensation that they're stepping in with you. Like for you guys, it feels like I feel like energy on your left shoulders. You guys feel anything?
I was actually feeling a tingle over there, like the whole time that we were doing the breath work just then.
I'm a
Yeah.
bit heavier. I feel a bit heavier on my left side at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's what mediumship is like being more aware of the subtleties. You know, it could be very subtle at first until you begin to practice. But all you do is you ask for somebody to connect. If you have somebody specific you feel connected to, like me, like my grandma died, I connected to her a lot first till I got comfortable. And then all you do is you just ask for connection, and then typically somebody will start working with you that's connected to you, whether it's your grandma, whoever. And then you'll start receiving information. You might start by just seeing like little pictures or like flutters of things. And then as you grow and progress, you'll start to have almost like a conversation with them. And that's mediumship in a nutshell, basically.
Right.
I
Not too
mean,
different than
you know,
meditation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
what I was thinking. I was thinking, like, I was having trouble in the very beginning, like, getting up to that, like, thinking of, like, from the ceiling, right?
yeah,
But then when you said the ground, I was like, okay. And I centered myself because that's what I'm used to doing. And I fully felt like the ground, right? Like I felt being there and the difference between the spaces, right?
yeah,
So, and I had to like definitely go into my like meditation zone, like in order to do that. So yeah, that's crazy interesting.
Yeah. Thanks
yeah.
for
I mean,
taking us through.
yeah, no, it's all good. I mean, what I did with you guys in like 2 minutes, I would do in a half an hour, basically.
Sure.
So it's kind of harder in this time frame, but basically, it's the beginner aspects of like connection, and then the work you can do by yourself, and that this is just like kind of guidelines that I kind of feel like help people. It doesn't mean it's the right way, and I think everybody connects differently. And some people are more sensitive with certain things, like I'm more of a feeler, you might be more of somebody who sees or hears, so it's like you have to find your own path, but I try to like at least set you up with some like guidelines.
Yeah.
That's super cool. I appreciate that. That's
Yeah.
definitely something I wanna explore more. It was a very
Yeah, I feel
interesting
like
theory.
writing helps too. I don't know if you're a writer, but like I, sometimes like the hand-heart connection, if you set time aside and you set the intention, I think it flows when you write sometimes too. I find a lot of people like writing.
It's interesting.
Trying to get more into it. So I'm curious about your grandma, if you don't mind me asking. Was she like a very spiritual lady? How long in your life did you know her? And I guess when she was
Uh,
living.
yeah, I mean, she wasn't necessarily spiritual. I mean, she was very like nurturing. She was a very, I mean, I don't know, some people I guess have not warm grandmas, but my grandma was super warm. She loved me very much. I think she went through a lot of trauma, and I don't know if that made her reach. Like, she was somebody who was spiritual, but not like where it's like out in the open, I
Sure.
guess. It was more of like her internal belief system. Um, I think it's a lot of things. It's like you're shaped by things that I don't think you're aware of as a kid. It's like my grandmother, my grandfather died when my mom was like 18, and my grandmother was like the matriarch. So I feel like she also had a lot of focus and attention on her that kind of made her feel more than she was in a sense to me.
Sure.
I don't know, but she would come to me all the time, and she would leave. Another time she came to me, I always tell this story with people, is that this was when I was first opening up, before I even saw the first medium that I told you guys about. Um, she had just passed, and my mom had a friend who was a medium who what happened? I'm sorry. No, she came to me and I started getting like dreams with her, right? And I'm telling my mom this story, and at the time I lived at home, and my room was upstairs and we were downstairs, and she said she was going to leave us dimes, and she was going to come visit us and all this stuff in this dream. So I was like telling my mom the story, and we're talking about it, and all of a sudden the TV in my room turns on out of nowhere, and it's blasting. And it's not cable, it's like static, which was weird because like my TV was hooked up to cable. So I thought it was so weird. So me and my mom go up the stairs, and I open the door, and there's 2 dimes on the floor.
Wow.
Wild. Whoa.
And then I get this cold chill over my whole body, and I felt like she hugged me. And I actually started crying. And then my house phone rang, and on the caller ID it was my grandma's cell phone.
What?
What?
Yeah. And then it was funny, like when this first happened, anytime I told anybody this story, they would find a dime, like
Ah,
out of nowhere, like weirdly.
wow.
And then just to like expand, so she would leave me dimes everywhere, and it would be places that I would be like, how the fuck did this dime get here? Like, I remember one time I went in the shower, and there was a dime in the soap dish thing in my shower.
Grandma,
But
you don't need to be in the shower. Come on now.
yeah, stop watching me, Grandma. No, but yeah, and then even like further, I was looking for a house when I was buying my house, and we found this like open house in a town that I really didn't necessarily look at, and we pull up to the house, and I feel like my grandma in the car, and she tells me, this is the house that you're gonna buy. And I said, all right. So I go inside, and in the wall, like in the trim, there's a dime in the kitchen.
oh man.
And then to even go further is like the house, they wanted like 280, and I bid 240, and somebody did 275, and the lady gave me the house.
Oh wow.
And
I thought you were about to say that you
you know,
missed it by a dime or something.
that would have been funny. No, but yeah, like shit like that, it's like you can't really explain it away, like now I've had so many stories like that, like there's no way I'm like not believer, like I've had thousands of stories similar to that.
Right.
Sure.
If I could ask real quick, have you heard of like people being in a room and like the same song getting stuck in people's heads at the same time? Like maybe one person starts singing it and the other person's like, "Man, like I was
Yeah.
just thinking about that song." That happened all the time to me and my wife at our last house. Anytime we were in our kitchen, like one of us would start singing the song the other person was thinking about.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
and
mean,
we
you got to
always
think you're
wondered like
connected
maybe there
too.
was some kind of external like connection to that because it just seemed really weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think like first off, I think when you live with somebody all the time, you guys kind of get on a similar frequency. I
Yeah,
think
but
from just
these aren't even
matching
songs that
energy.
I like either of us like. Like they would
Yeah.
just be random songs.
Well, but that's what I'm saying is like I think like we're connecting to spirit all the time. You just don't know it. It's like
Oh
it's the
yeah.
same thing as like that hunch or that gut feeling you get. It's somebody's trying to tell you something. I think we're inspired all the time. It's like just some of us listen better than others. It's like the same thing as like somebody who creates music or creates art. Like where is that coming from? I think it's much more like internal than like just the person. Like I think there's there's people who are connected to these channels. It's the same thing as even like
Idea of
somebody
the
like
muse.
Nikolai Tesla. You know what?
Like the idea of the muse.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look at like somebody like Tesla, who's like ahead of his time. Like, where did he get that information from? Was he just a genius, or was there something giving him that information?
Mm.
And maybe he was just an antenna, you know? Maybe certain people are
Definitely.
just better antennas.
I think it was definitely aliens. I definitely think it was aliens.
Yeah, but what are aliens? Dun, dun,
Exactly.
dun.
That's what I'm
Right.
starting to think. That's what I'm getting from this conversation is what is it all now? It's definitely all connected. There's too many
Yeah,
corroborating stories.
yeah, I mean, I think it's all, to be honest, I think we're here to have an experience, and that's all it is. And I think other things are just ways to deepen this experience. You know, we have more expanding and more expanding and more expanding, but really, I think it's like none of it matters when we die. But that's just my belief, you know?
That's my belief too. I'm with you. So
Well, while we are still here and alive, some people out there may want to reach out to you, Pete. How do people get a hold of you?
You can find me on Blue Collar Spiritualist on Instagram and unfortunately TikTok too. And bluecollarspiritualist.com. That's it.
Right on. Are
That's
you
good.
still doing the live readings on TikTok?
I haven't. I got kind of sick of it. I
Yeah,
deleted TikTok and then I went back to it.
it's an
It's just,
eternal struggle. Yeah.
yeah, it's a good place to advertise, but just people get crazy sometimes and they want a message all the time. Then you get people messaging you for messages, and it's like, I'm doing this for free. Like, you know, like, I don't know.
Right.
Takes a
All right.
toll. But
Well, Pete, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This has been so much fun, man.
yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun. It's fun
yeah,
talking to you
thanks so
guys.
much, Pete.
So cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I think we'll have you down for a round two if you're cool with that.
Yeah, I'm down.
To
Yeah,
talk about. Awesome.
yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll call that a wrap here. Thank you so much for catching this episode of the Panda Pod. And we will catch you later. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Take care.
Bye.